Alright, today we're installing a short shifter kit from LCE Engineering into a 4-cylinder first gen 4Runner with manual transmission. It's pretty much the same procedure for any of the W56s that aren't top shift. I'm also going to be changing my transmission oil at the same time, so I got that draining now, and I'll just leave that draining for the entirety of the procedure here. I'm going to make sure the transmission's in neutral, then remove the shifter knobs. I got gear oil in my hand, so it's not particularly easy, but there we go. Then if you have it, you want to remove the center console. These last two screws are hard to get to. The base model guys are laughing at us. Then you want to remove these 6 screws that hold the base plate onto the body. Once all the screws are out, you can just lift this plate up off the shifters. And then carefully lift up this boot. And then you'll see 4 Phillips screws / 10mm bolts. So you can remove those. And then once those are loose, you can just pull the shifter right out of the housing. Careful not to drip any oil on your carpet. You can get a 12mm socket and remove the 6 bolts that hold the top plate onto the top of the transmission. Alright, now be very careful when you lift off this plate. There is a silicone sort of rubber gasket there, and it has 6 washers behind it. See them there? And they are very hard to find if you drop them in the transmission. Right? So you want to make sure that I sort of just slide this forward and back. That way it separates from those washers. And then lift it off, and those washers should stay where they are. Now you can just take all this stuff, clean it all apart, clean it all down, and get ready for installing the actual short shifter. Now for a transmission that has as many miles as this 4Runner does, I'd say this one looks pretty good. There's the stock rubber shifter seat. You can see little bits and pieces of it here. There's going to be little bits and pieces of it like that through your transmission, but they are rubber. There's not really anything you can do to get rid of it besides change your gear oil. So just clean out this plate, and we'll put it back together clean. And there's the original Toyota ball at the end. It's not in too bad a condition. So let's just clean all this stuff down, and then we'll get ready to reassemble. Now we're going to install the new shifter seat into this top plate. I cleaned it off. I mean, it's never going to be perfectly clean, but I just got off all the loose stuff so that we wouldn't have any problems. Insert the shifter seat upside down with these notches. See them there lined up with these pins, and just rotate it into place, just like that. Now we're going to install this extension, just right here, onto there. Now you'll see that these little keepers are tapered. See that they're wider up here than they are down on this end. You want to make sure that that taper follows the taper of the shifter. Just like that. Okay, so now we're just going to lightly put those keepers on there, put the set screws in, but don't have them extend into the hole. And just slide the assembly over. Alright, so there it is installed. It's a real tight fit, so don't be afraid to whack it. I did have to take off this ball. Be careful not to damage it. You can see it's got a little bit of a flare to it there, but that's not really going to affect anything. Just make sure you don't break it. Then you want to make sure that you red Loctite these set screws and put them in. Alright, so now that we got the nuts in there and tightened down, with red Loctite in the threads, we want to stake these so that they don't turn. Now I found it kind of difficult to do this the way that LCE Engineering wanted me to do it, so I found a punch that fit in there. It was a tapered punch, fit in there pretty good, and then I just hammered it, which kind of expanded the bolt out, the stud out, the set screw, whatever you want to call it. So hopefully it doesn't go anywhere. Now you can take the shifter assembly, slide it all into place here. Bolt it all together. Careful not to cross thread these bolts. Torque spec on these is probably about 9 pounds. Don't need to really torque them, it's not imperative, but snug them down so they're not going to come loose. But they're going into aluminum, so make sure you don't strip them. Done. Now if you're replacing your gear oil too, now is the time to put the drain plug back in and take out the fill plug and then fill it through this hole. It's a lot easier. And then just stop when it starts coming out the drain or the fill hole on the side. Alright, so I cut out a new gasket. Gasket sponsored by Safeway brand cola. Went down to the basement and gotten my box of gaskets, and I don't have any more gasket paper. So I cut one out of this soda box. I'm going to put some silicone on there. LCE recommends using just silicone. I'm just going to put this gasket in there. I figure it'll crush a little more, give a little more, and seal better. I'm just going to put silicone on both sides, smack it on there. Alright, well I had to trim the floor, as you can see right there, so I can get clearance for those bolts, because it's not possible to install the entire assembly as a unit, and it's also not possible to put all the bolts in unless you clearance it a little bit, so that's what I did. Okay, so now we're going to install this. Slide it straight down. Once you got all 6 bolts snug, just take your time. It's kind of finicky getting everything lined up, but once you got them all lined up and in there and snug, torque them all down to 15 foot-pounds. And you're pretty much all done now. Just take it for a test drive before you button it up all together. You won't want to get all the trim on there, getting it all looking fancy, and then find out it doesn't work. So test drive it and then put it together.